Welcome everyone to the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. I'm your host Michael Pickering. That's right, Lo-Fi as in low fidelity, low quality, in your face, messy as can be global news show. It's Tuesday, Lo-Fi Nation, and you know what that means. It's time for Tuesday's Top 10 list. Every Tuesday we look at global indicators and surveys to see what countries hold the top 10 rankings in particular categories. Today's list, the 10 countries with the lowest GDP per capita in the world. This accompanies our list from 2 weeks ago of the top 10 highest GDP per capita countries in the world. And as a refresher for all you listeners out there, what exactly is GDP per capita? Well, if GDP is short for gross domestic product, and that's the amount of money a country makes in one calendar year via the sales of all goods and services produced in the country, GDP per capita is that dollar amount divided by the population. And you see what this gives us is, on average, the amount of money each person makes in the country. Now remember, it's an average. It's not the exact amount that every person makes in a country, because that number, it'd be different for everyone. GDP per capita simply takes the GDP and divides it by the population to see if income was completely equal in the country. This is the amount that each person would make. And with that, let's roll with it. The list. Data coming from the International Monetary Fund, aka the IMF, for the calendar year of 2020. Coming in at number 10, Niger, with a GDP per capita in 2020 of $536 per person. Number 9, Sierra Leone, with a GDP per capita of $518. Number 8, Madagascar, at $515. Number 7, Afghanistan, with $499 per person in 2020. Number 6, Central African Republic, $480. Now to our bottom 5. Number 5, Democratic Republic of Congo, $457 a person. Number 4, Mozambique, $455. Number 3, Malawi, $399 a person. Number 2, South Sudan at $303 a person. And coming in at number 1, with the lowest GDP per capita in the world in 2020, Burundi, at $264 a year per person. What can we say other than, wake up, Lo-Fi Nation? There's a lot of people struggling out there in the world today. Additionally, the IMF does list Syria as the country with the lowest GDP per capita in the world in 2020, with an estimate of $0. However, note to anyone looking at that data, that's simply an indication that the IMF doesn't actually have enough reliable data to calculate the statistic for Syria. It doesn't really mean that they have the lowest number in 2020, and that's because of the Syrian civil war. Now let's get down to it and do some comparative analysis of this list and these numbers. First, you should notice that no country on this list reaches a GDP per capita of $1,000 a year per person, and barely even reaches the $500 mark, with Niger, Sierra Leone, and Madagascar the only ones that do. Second, you may also realize that aside from Afghanistan, the entire list of countries reside in the continent of Africa. And if you were to take a deeper dive into the countries on this list, you would most certainly realize that almost every single country on this list is suffering from some kind of civil conflict or civil war, meaning that violence hurts economic development in a country. Now, what if we were to compare this list to the list of the countries with the top GDP per capitas in the world in 2020. And before you even say, oh no, that's not even comparable. Oh yes, it is. It most certainly is. And here we go. Our number 10 highest country is Australia, with a GDP per capita of $51,885 a year per person. Our number 10 country with the lowest GDP, Niger, with $536 a year per person. The difference between our number 10s is more than $51,000 a year per person. That's a massive difference in wealth in these two countries considering the populations. And our number 1 country is Luxembourg, with a GDP per capita of over $109,000 a year per person. Our number 1 country with the lowest GDP per capita is Burundi, at $264. That's a difference of over $109,000 a year per person between Luxembourg and Burundi. The implications that the distribution of wealth globally is highly uneven. The implications that while so many countries are doing great, many countries are hurting. The implications, nay, the reality, is that these numbers don't do justice to describe the situation that many people call life. The world's a big place, and the struggle is most certainly real. But economic struggles aren't the only struggles going on right now. We talk a lot about the struggle in Myanmar, Hong Kong, Thailand, Somalia, and so many other places. We talk about the struggle for freedom, civil liberty, and civil rights. And next week's list, we're going to start looking at the list of countries ranked by civil liberties and civil rights. We'll be taking a tour of Freedom House. And that's this Tuesday's Top 10 list. Always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's the we that we be. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, eyes open, ears to the ground. And I'll see you in the next episode of the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. Pickering, signing off.